Welcome to A Fine Podcast with your hosts, Amanda and
Joseph. Yes, welcome back, everyone. We are here to finally conclude our journey of The Bachelor and Grant.
That's right. We're here to discuss the big 3-hour finale that just premiered.
Yes, and all about the closure, the ending, where they are now.
Yes, it was riveting. And we had our snacks last night and watched it. And it was crazy. What did you think?
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, it was at least exciting to be my guess all along. I was right. So I felt happy about that. But
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, there was a lot happening, and
And what did you think about our snacks that we had?
there was a lot of snacks.
Let's talk about it. What snacks were your favorite?
I guess popcorn, it's hard to beat. It's a good classic.
Did you like how your popcorn was overflowing out of the bowl?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was like the bottom of the barrel of that bag. So it's the really tiny pieces
That's why it was overflowing.
it's unfeasible to even eat those ones unless you can somehow pour them down your.
Only the best for you for our finale night.
Yeah.
Well, how tiny would you say the pieces were?
I mean, pretty small. Like
Bottom of the barrel.
probably a tenth of an inch in size. Maybe 2/10 of an inch.
I looked over at you at one point and you just were like trying to pour it in your mouth because there's no other way to eat it.
Yeah, because you have like 10 of them in your hand, and then they're going to quickly scatter all over the place if you don't.
You'd have to have like pinchers, like crab pinchers to eat it.
Yeah. And then you need like 20 of them in your mouth anyway to actually get the taste of popcorn.
I just noticed when I was pouring your popcorn, it was like the end of the bag.
Yeah, it's the worst part of the worst part of it.
Yeah, that wasn't good. But what do you think about the other snacks?
Yeah, they were all good. What do we have?
We had salt and vinegar chips.
Oh, yes. Yeah, those. Yeah, the chips were good.
They're really good. And we had Reese cups.
Yeah, those were good.
Reese's cups.
A good way to add some chocolate to the sweet and salty.
Yeah. And we had a Kit Kat.
Oh, yes. Wow, I like forgetting what I even ate last night.
We had tiers of desserts. All for the special 3-hour finale.
Yes. TIERS, not TEARS for desserts.
We cried in our desserts.
Yeah. And for the finale.
Tears for the tears that were shed.
No, there's no tears.
There were tears for Grant and some of the ladies.
There's only 2.
Some. Yes, our liquid. Brought to you by 365 Lemonade and Vitamin C. This was the lemon water we were talking about that tastes like a delicious lemonade. We will have a sip.
No, this is not brought to you by them.
Yeah, too bad it's not, but it is not brought to you by them. We just love it. So let's start at the beginning where we see Litia meeting Grant's family. And I will say, when she walked into the room and her and Grant were together and they sat on the couch, they were very huggy with each other. They were all over each other.
Yeah. I don't know if when I see this, it's like, are you just trying to... Well, I mean, we know their connection, but I don't know what it's like the first time and showing other people, and you're doing this. Is it like to really show like, hey, we're really in love, right? Like how on top of each other we are.
I thought it was a
But
little much. It was a little too showy and less genuine.
yeah, I mean, obviously, like their connection is real. It's not just a fake thing. But I feel like when I see this though, it is just kind of weird to.
She was basically like sitting in his lap.
Yeah, because I would almost think. Well, I guess there's just a balance, right? I mean, I would almost say less is more in these situations, but
But I think all of this was like built up to make you think Litia was going to get engaged at the end of this. The way they set up the beginning of the episode, they made it look like her and Grant are so in love while talking to his family, and she had all the right answers for the parents when they asked her questions. And she said that she wants her future kids to learn from Grant's parents, and they were touched by that. And they bonded over family being important to Litia and to them. But they did mention a quick section about how Grant probably doesn't want kids right away and Litia does. And he says he wants to travel for 3 to 4 years and he's a little bit worried about that. But then his dad says, you can't let one little issue like that keep you from the person that you're the most in love with. So if that's the only issue, rethink that.
yeah, no, I think I really enjoyed the father son moments that they really emphasized it a lot. I guess mainly because of the upbringing, but
I thought this was so touching. Yeah, there was a lot of touching moments that came up later too that we'll talk about, but just what a meaningful thing for Grant's father to be able to be there for him now. And you could just tell on both sides, Grant and his father, like it meant so much to the two of them together.
yeah, and I think the advice he gave was excellent and spot on, and I think it helped Grant, but I mean it was great because yeah, I would say especially I think at this point Grant is you know for lack of a better term he's kind of almost creating like a pros and cons for for each person, and this was this big thing about Litia was really the timeline, and Juliana doesn't really have a timeline with things and whatnot, but yeah, I would say especially with how his dad responded. I mean, yeah, that marriage and love is compromising on things, and
Right. If it's the right person, then you can work anything out. But if it's not the right person, then that's a different story.
right,
So Grant says he's thrilled having the support of both of his parents. And I think this also meant a lot to him to have both his mother and his father sitting side by side in the same room. I think he opens up the episode saying it's been almost a decade since the two of them have been together in the same room. And they put all differences aside. You can see how much they have both grown from their situations. And that was really nice to have his family united there for him.
yeah. I have to say it's must have been interesting if that was like the first time they've seen each other in that long to have to be on television and
Yeah,
gotta go through things.
it's a lot, but I think that says a lot about the two of them, how much they love their son to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And which I guess it made sense that they did that, where they took them individually. It's like the mom had time with the two girls, and then Grant's dad had time with them.
And the sister, too, had time.
Yeah, that's
with them.
true. She was involved as well. So
Yes. We leave this interaction with Grant saying, oh, the family enjoyed Litia. Litia enjoyed my family. This reaffirms my feelings about her. And then Litia says in an interview they're in love. She's the most confident in this whole relationship. She knows she'll be engaged at the end of the week and she'll soon be Mrs. Ellis.
Yeah, I mean, I think Litia had great answers for really all the questions that they had, and yeah, I mean, I think she really is ready. And
But she totally thought she was getting engaged.
well, I was amazed. Well, not amazed, but I mean, because I mean, clearly the way that they're talking to each other, she's led to believe that. But I was kind of shocked. She has been very. She's still been, I guess thinking that it's been them, but still no, up to this point has known that there still is other people involved, and it may not be her, so she's still been a little bit back. But it does seem like at this point she just like broke down that barrier and is
100% confident now.
yeah totally gung ho about it, and no turning back, and there's no way it's Juliana, it's us moving forward. Which I have to say, I mean, the way they talk and the way Grant's been talking to her, yeah, absolutely. It would be hard to kind of
Yeah.
think, how is it not at this point? Because how could you be saying these things to two different people? So,
Something must have been said to make her think like, oh, I'm definitely getting picked. It's definitely me. Because even if you're so incredibly confident, you do technically know there's another person.
yeah.
And she wasn't like regarding that at all.
Yeah, I mean, she does allude to some type of words being said like that, when she comes back. But yeah, I mean, there must have been even been during this interaction or during this episode, maybe some things off camera that were leading her to really kind of think that, oh yeah, it's definitely got to be me.
Yeah. So it was kind of sad to see that. I think we saw that for the first time. We're like, oh boy, she's really confident. Uh-oh. If like what we predicted comes true, then this is not going to
Yeah,
be great for her.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it did make me think. It's really gonna. Seeing that was like, especially if it doesn't go through her way, then it's just gonna be more of a catastrophe for her, which was
The case.
sad to see, right? Which ended up being the case, but yeah, at that point it was like, this is only gonna make it worse if it doesn't go your way.
Right.
And even just totally blindsided at this point, if she just totally is not even thinking, knows a possibility, where before it probably wouldn't have been as bad,
But now it's going to be crushing bad.
yeah.
So let's move on to Juliana meeting Grant's family. So this interaction, they made it seem like, ooh, there's some mystery here because Grant's mom right away asks Juliana, do you love my son? And Juliana doesn't just straight up say, yes, yes. She says, well, that's something we both haven't expressed to each other yet. And she says in an interview, I don't know if I can say I love you to Grant if there's still another woman involved. So I'm trying to push myself to think about this because she knows she loves Grant. She just can't say it and doesn't. She has reservations about saying it because of Litia still being there. So then Grant's mom tells Grant, if you and Juliana can't tell each other your feelings, then Grant, I need you to walk away from this. Like if Juliana doesn't say that she loves you, you probably need to walk away. Which makes you think, oh no, like maybe they're not going to get together.
Just a little bit, right after this conversation, Grant and them meet, or Grant and Juliana talk, and then he comes out and says, I love you, and she says it back. But, right before this, it made me kind of think, I almost wonder, he said it was with Litia first, and I don't know if he was almost, maybe because he realized he had something potentially deeper with Juliana. Maybe not at this point, since he kind of seems to be undecided until the very last moment. But if he was more cautious about saying I love you to Juliana, meaning it like he was more intent or really wanting to make sure that was the case, or took more
That's true.
care in saying those words to her versus like Litia.
Which is sad for Litia, but
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
don't know if that's the case, but it made me kind of think because I was wondering what why did Litia get why was she said those words so much sooner than
right.
Juliana when they kind of seemed to that case, and then when he said it there, I thought, well, I don't know, maybe it was because he wanted to be a little more careful with her when he said it, and maybe some of it was too. She was just kind of being more reserved with opening up about things, but
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that was kind of a possibility I was thinking of.
Yeah, that could be it. I think their connection is about being lone wolves, right? And I think it takes them longer to sort through their feelings, and they've both been through similar things, so maybe they were still building on that connection. And I think that's probably a good thing. It took them a little bit longer to say it to where it
Yeah,
was really genuine. So,
yeah. Where I would say like Latia has just been very inviting this whole time and created like this space that would make it easier for him to open up to her about that
yeah.
instead of Juliana. But I don't know. I'm just a thought.
Yeah. So, Grant's dad addresses how Grant has been shut off in his emotions with him before, and he talks to Juliana about this, and Juliana says, "Well, I've already, talked to Grant a lot about emotional things." And his dad says, "Okay, well, if you're able to break through with my son about emotional subjects and him expressing his emotions, you're already a couple levels up from me." And I think that's a great thing because that's exactly what he needs in his life, is someone who he can trust with his emotions and someone he can talk to and break down. And I think it's just been a challenge sometimes for Grant and his dad to talk about these things given their past and everything too. So Grant's dad does seem to be happy that Juliana has developed this deeper connection with Grant. So,
Yeah, I mean that hearing that come from the dad did I think made me kind of think I think he does have a deeper connection with Juliana and things. Basically, especially with how he opened up about that, but yeah, I mean it
yeah.
really it did.
So Grant and his dad have a nice emotional moment together. Grant's dad says, Grant, you've been through some stuff and, I've made some bad decisions, but you turned out to be a gem and I'm so proud of you, son. And it was just a really touching moment. He says, I'll always be there for you now. I'm here now. So you can just tell Grant's dad has learned from his past mistakes, and he's just so thankful that Grant grew up and turned out to be the person that he became, and that he kind of gets a second chance with Grant now. And so they
Yeah, I mean
talk
this
about
is
that.
as Grant says that I mean this is his biggest decision to make and yeah his father definitely wants to definitely not miss it and be with him anywhere along the process that he can
Yes.
be, which is it's really nice. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed. I already said it, but I really enjoyed how much attention they put on that
Me too.
and how that played out. Because that was really nice,
Really
and I think
nice.
Grant appreciated that as well.
Definitely. So it seems like Grant's family has really encouraged him to open up about his feelings for Juliana. So at this point, at the end of the family date, he feels confident to tell Juliana, I love you. And then she says, I've been hanging on to this. I love you too. And Grant says, now they're in love. And that's the way it ends.
Yeah, I don't know with the. It's interesting, I guess, because if he felt this, I guess was he just nervous to tell Juliana it, or maybe it was just the talk with his family he needed to just get him to just get out and say it. Because maybe he has. Obviously, I think he's probably been feeling it for a bit at this point.
Yeah, I think his family encouraged him to say it.
Yeah.
And now Jesse says, well, Grant is in love with both women. What is he going to do? And then he says, let's call on some audience members that we have here today. And he brings up Charity, Clayton, and Gary. And they come up to the front and he asks for advice for Grant, even though this was pre-filmed. So Grant has already been through this whole thing.
Yeah, this was like the weirdest where Jesse's like, what if you could give Grant any advice right now based on your experience, what would it be? And just like, oh.
Charity says, well, he should trust his gut. And then Clayton says, I told my final 3 women I loved them, but I did love them all for their individual qualities, which I don't know how that's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have not seen or even heard of this guy before, but I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how his turned out. But
and then Gary says, yes, I love my final 3, but it's a hard spot to be in. And then they zoom into Joan and Chalk in the audience, which was kind of nice to see them again. And Jesse asks Joan, like, why didn't you tell multiple men that you loved them? Because she only told Chalk that she loved him. And she said, because I really meant it with one person.
yeah.
And that was it. So,
yeah. Which I was thinking, is it like really love at this point? I don't know. I mean, you do get a lot of time, but it was very short. But I don't know. I think a combination of with like all the journey and the getting to basically go to all these great spots around the world, and you're closed off from the real world. You're kind of in this fantasy realm for these weeks. I think it's very easy. You've got a lot of dopamine flowing and whatnot, but it's very. I think they have strong feelings for each other. Yes, but the other thing I don't know that was kind of weird was Jesse made some remark about I think only probably a handful or even a select full of people in the world have ever been in this situation where they love 2 people at the same time.
Yeah,
Which,
and then
I don't know,
you
like,
said, what about polyamorous relationship?
Well, I mean, sure, yeah, I did make that remark, but I don't know, it was just weird for him to say, only a very select few people across the entire world have ever been in a situation like this. I was like, I don't know. Basically, I'm sure there's been more scenarios than what he's pointing out, but
yeah, probably.
I just thought it was an interesting statement that he
only just a few people. Like he's like a statistician and he knows all of this somehow.
Well, it was like that. It's like it would have had to have been through like Bachelor history, or if not, then I'm sure it's very
and maybe
minimal,
just Bachelor history.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the 15 people that had this predicament have experienced that. But.
Yeah, but then Jesse kept saying, will he choose Juliana? Will he choose Litia? Will he just choose nobody at all?
Yeah, that was weird how he kept, and I guess it was to try to really just keep everyone in suspense and even introduce that idea.
It did work for me because I was like, oh no, what if something terrible happened? And then he's just like, I'm so undecided that this is wrong and I can't go with anybody.
Yeah. I thought that, but I was thinking about that, but I was like, I mean, he's expressed so much interest between the 2 of them. I can't imagine that he would have walked away from both of them, because I think he totally would have been kicking himself down the road to
that
do
would
that.
have been a bad move.
And did he really? Was it really like up while he's sitting in the cabana waiting for?
I mean, I think the way they did the edits for this finale where Jesse's talking to Grant and Grant's like, I just don't know who we should send first. That was like cut together in a way that made you think like he was truly undecided down to that moment with Jesse. down to
Yeah.
the moment right before he was going to drop on a knee. And if that was true, then I thought, okay, maybe like he picks nobody because this is ridiculous that he hasn't come to a decision until that point. That's odd. But it wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was, we will see, but it wasn't that.
Yeah.
So let's go into Juliana's last date with Grant. It's finally the jumping from the boat scene that we have seen this entire series long.
Yeah. So all the different previews that they've spritzeled here and there. But yes, we have finally seen the from the very first opening. So, little insight. It seems that if you pretty much see crystal blue waters in a preview, especially in the very first opening before the season starts, that's probably a
Finale scene.
Yeah, so we've at least seen the ending. It's always on some remote island, Caribbean, Cayman Island. I'm sure they've done Cayman Islands and Bermuda, etc. All these different great islands to go. It's always like beach themes. So
Yes.
they haven't changed that up. So yeah, if they sneak like a little pic or little clip of that, then it's like, oh yeah, it's probably.
Well, they thought they were being sneaky because they showed her like just her hair when she jumped into the water, right? So it made the audience think like, we don't know who this is because there's 20 something people. So
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mean, you really can't tell because there's so many different women, and maybe they even had a little bit of a hair coloring change, or I don't know, something. But obviously,
like Madison off of Love is Blind when she came in with pink hair.
Yeah, at least that was like, well, I guess actually no, that was during the shooting, but all right, what is going on, dude? Yeah, but as the episodes go on, and more and more people get eliminated.
And then you're able to tell who it is.
Yeah, I think it was like by halfway, I felt like I was pretty confident that it was Juliana. But anyway, regardless.
Yes. So they talk about how Grant has a fear of getting his heart broken. And he then asks her if she's ready for an engagement in 2 days or will she break his heart? And she says she can promise moving forward she will do her best to handle his heart with care. And they both bond over having been hurt by people they cared for before. And she said, I didn't know I was able to get to this point, but I am truly in love. It's happened so fast, but here we are. And now she's very prepared to enter an engagement with him and to be his wife. And they both used to be scared to admit their feelings for one another, but now they have. And that was their last date.
Yeah, I thought this was a great question for him to ask and I think it was really his barrier. I mean, I feel like these were the two different barriers that he really wanted to figure out from these dates between them. Was with Litia was really, how strict does this timeline have to be about the kids? And Juliana was, are you really going to be ready and open up enough and be ready to jump into this thing?
Right. And I think it helps that the two of them are very similar and they can bond over their past experiences.
Yeah, well, that's why I think ultimately she was the stronger candidate anyway from the get go. Was a lot of the similar experiences, and two, that she has this large family that is very well, put together and gets along, and
They're very open. There's not a specific religion.
right, yeah, or at least they don't specify one, but yeah,
But I guess it's not the same thing as like being intimidated by the Mormon religion and not knowing, because I think in one of his interviews he says, but I like to have fun sometimes. I don't know if they'll accept me.
Yeah.
But I think it was that. I think it was the location. Grant really likes the East Coast, and that's where Juliana's family is too. I think, I don't know, a lot. I just see a lot between the two of them. But yeah.
Yeah, but it was so it was good to see this question though, and obviously she responded very well to it and is ready for it, and I think that did give him the confidence to know that, she is ready for this and ready to go. And I think that did kind of help seal the deal for it in his mind
Yeah.
with her.
Yeah, he could see, okay, she is at the level I need her to be at for this to work properly, and I'm there too. And I think that was the last puzzle piece for him with her. So that was good that they talked. But then let's go into Latia's last date. So they ride horses together, and Litia just looks like she's on cloud nine. Like she has this in the bag, the way she's carrying on in the date. And then we see her writing Grant a nice letter where she calls him Granty.
Yeah. I could not believe uh, going into this how confident. I mean, it really just feeling like a switch flipped off. Mainly because from Fantasy Suite, she was really so nervous about going into that and really scared about these other connections and what will happen and whatnot. And then like this, it's just like, I don't know. I was just very, did not expect her to just feel like, oh, I've got this in the bag at this point. And then even just going through this date. Now, like I said, I mean, the he kept using a lot of wording and phrasing that would give that confidence, but
But to be this confident, yeah, it definitely seemed like a flip switch, like you said. And it was a totally new person. And she was like, oh, isn't this wonderful? Us riding horses before our engagement together. Like, this is just so great.
y-
I don't know, just like little things like that where I was like, oh my gosh, this is.
yeah, throwing out all those comments was very was very bold. I don't know. I feel like this was just so much, because I would think, I haven't seen enough of these yet, but how often are they throwing out the love word first before the engagement? And
Besides Clayton saying it to all three
I
women.
guess it is. Maybe it's not super uncommon to not do it. I would think I would almost want to wait until like kind of like Jones' situation. Like, but
Or just wait until you're saying it to one person only and that's it, right?
yeah. Especially I think by the time I would want to say it is by the time I know it's this person, and it would be like quit the show. I'm done. Let's go.
Right.
I found my person. I wouldn't be able to do that, but that would be my thought process. But and there was, I guess some of it was like too where Grant was saying you're just trying to stay open to the process, and or Jesse was honing on some of this and just leaning into the process and really going through the whole extent of it to know who your person is. And I think there's some, I don't think that's great to do it in its entirety like he did here, because there wasn't even any such like any pull up before it. Like they both dates ended like pretty much we're getting engaged tomorrow, like basically. And I mean, I think Latia's literally did end in that, but
Yeah. Well, I think part of Litia, her saying, oh, yeah, isn't tomorrow going to be great when we're engaged? And him just saying, yeah. What is he supposed to say to that? I think Litia had a lot of comments that she was saying to Grant. And then Grant was like, okay, like, what am I supposed to say? No. No, we're not getting engaged tomorrow, Litia. Why are you saying that? Don't say that prematurely. Like, what else was Grant supposed to say in that moment? He was trapped.
yeah, but I think he did say a lot to encourage her to say that. I don't think she would have just brought that up
Yeah, the
previous.
start, right.
Yeah, I think there was things. So that's why I'm not saying it's.
I think in the end where she brings up the comments like, yeah, I said this and then you said, yeah, like, I don't know, that part, it was just like, yeah, because he can't give away the ending yet.
Yeah, but I do think there were things probably off camera that gave her not much. She was fine saying that because of things that he just mentioned to her privately that seemed like it was the deal.
So Grant asks her how much pressure she feels to start a family. And she says, the desire comes from my heart. And then he says, well, how would you handle it if I came to you and said, I'm not ready for a couple of years? And then she says, well, it would really depend on your reasoning. But if you have more things that you need to accomplish first, that's very important to me too. So that would be okay. And I want you to be excited and ready for us to have kids. So that was the way she kind of answered that question, which is, that's the best way to answer it, I guess. But you can just tell, like, she really wouldn't be happy with it, but she can't start having kids with a partner who doesn't want to have
Well,
kids yet.
yeah, I think she've answered it very honestly. I mean, it's something that she really wants, pretty quickly after. And, I don't think he really was wanting all that. He really wanted time first. And I think ultimately, I think that was a big disconnect that they were going to have. Even if he had picked her, I think that probably would have been a point of contingency for them going down the road.
Right.
And I think it would have been, he would have, even if they hadn't jumped into it right away, it would be this thing lingering in the back of his mind of, oh, she's ready to jump into this and feeling this pressure of it and not be ready yet. And there just would have been this back of the mind lingering about it. And
Right.
so, yeah, I think this was a big reason and why he picked Juliana.
And a lot of this last meeting was her saying a lot of nice things to him. I haven't said I love you in past relationships because of the fear when I say it, but I feel so comfortable saying it with you. And she said she loved Grant way before she actually told him she loved him. And then Grant says, okay, I love you too. And then in a little interview, Grant says, I love both women equally. And then Grant's dad comes out to see him, which I thought was nice too. I think his mom and sister flew back, and his dad stuck around a little bit longer.
Yeah, the next day he showed up. And I thought this was one. I mean, once again, it was, I think, really great for that. But it really did show too of how, I think, how serious his dad wanted to be there. I mean, I think he wanted to. I wonder how that worked, right? And if it was just because the mom and sister had to go back, or if that was what they originally said, and he tried to just extend it any way he could, or because I think it was really nice that he was still there. He wanted to be there. I mean,
I think he's making up for lost time.
yeah, I think he's really trying to show Grant that things are going to be different going forward than how they used to be,
Touching.
which I thought was really nice.
So then we see Grant picking out a ring. Neil Lane, of course, because it's a free advertisement for Neil Lane. And
Well, this was like, it was funny because they showed I don't even know what you call them, the ring salesman or whatever, the ring guy there. And I guess he
the
was
ring guy.
he was in the audience. And
Yeah,
they had
that
his
was
reaction
so
of it
crazy.
being in the
He's
thing.
like, look, it's me.
Which was kind of funny. I don't guess he didn't.
I was like, why are they zooming in live to the ring guy in the audience as he? I don't know. It's just really funny.
Yeah, but then it was like, even the remark by Grant at this point where he was like, "I'm picking a ring for a woman I don't even know who I'm gonna pick
Yeah,
yet."
I don't know if that was editing or what. It had to have been at that point because he knew the type of ring that Juliana wanted, and he picked exactly what she wanted. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is I think this is because there's no way you could be picking the ring and you haven't even figured out, especially because I'm sure they had, maybe not, but different styles that they would have preferred. So it's not like you pick the one and be like, oh well,
yeah, it was definitely not
shoot, I
that.
picked now I picked the other one in my head and I got this ring. So
Editing
can I
for
do a
sure.
quick swap real quick?
I
or-
thought he was. I mean, we found out later he was thoughtful about choosing the ring and making it special, and so
there was, it was interesting because he did the emerald one for, did he say something about Juliana with the emerald? Maybe he didn't, but I don't know. For some reason I kind of had this thought when I saw the emerald that it was for Juliana, but I don't know why that popped into my head.
yeah, I
But
don't know.
Like, I felt like that was for Juliana, the round was for Litia, but
Oh,
because they
that
did
is
show, like,
correct.
2
Juliana
that
wanted the square and Latia wanted
maybe
the
that's why I
circle.
subconsciously thought it, but
I just know Juliana wanted gold. I don't know what Latia wanted. So then we see the meeting with Jesse. Jesse says his infamous line, I need to know who to send first. And here's where we see where the editing played tricks. Because Grant says, I made my decision. I'm confident. My dad's advice was to follow my heart, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. And then we see Litia come walking down first.
yeah. It was funny because I liked how there's so much. They were really trying to hold revealed who it was till the very last minute, because the car showed up, then the car parked, then the door opened, and then they go to the feet, but then I think she did have a shot where they showed the outfits that they were wearing, and she had the shoes next to the outfit, and I knew she had those big
chunky
whatever
shoes,
platforms or whatever they were,
which looked really hard to walk in that whole
she
way.
looked struggling, especially because of the rain and everything, probably not wanting to slip or anything.
So she was walking like super slow.
Yeah. But when they showed the feet, I was like, oh yeah,
that's Litia.
Yeah, before they even panned to her.
So as she's walking down, she says in an interview, I'm ready to get engaged today.
Yeah, this was really tough.
This was heartbreaking.
Watching this was like, was very, very tough, especially because just how gung-ho and ready she was. And then I guess they're required the women have to say the speech first, because then she gives this not crazy, but just this very
heartfelt,
elaborate speech of how she's, can't wait to marry him and start a life together.
Yeah.
And then it's just,
she can see her family with him, their children, their future.
Where then Grant responds and has to just steamroll her whole life at this point.
Well, you could see like the worry in Grant's eyes as she's talking. He's like, oh no.
Well, this is what I was so stunned about, is because it didn't even look like she was even catching on yet based on Grant's emotions, because he was very solemn. He wasn't laughing or smiling.
And he said something and she goes, oh, silly, this is the best day for us, or something like that. And I was like, she's still not catching on to this?
I don't know if maybe she thought maybe he was just doing it as like a
joke,
as a teaser or something to still like have. But then I would think, if I, cared for the person, I don't want to add any more additional, stress or nervousness to this whole situation. But yeah, I don't know. I was stunned that it never clicked until he fully
said it.
Yeah.
And Grant says, this is hard for him, but he isn't her person, and he's just sorry it got to this point, and his emotional connection is stronger with somebody else. And she says, when did this change? When did this change? And he said, oh, it hasn't changed. I still love you, but, these are my feelings. And then he says, I hope you don't view me differently. And she says, oh, I do. And then she says, come on now. And all of a sudden she like turns from sweet Litia to Litia with vengeance and an attitude.
Well, I mean, obviously there's like, a ton of emotion at this point, and it is kind of, it did seem like her, I don't know, the way she was talking kind of changed a little bit. But I mean, I get it, because
who did you make a reference to with this?
Well,
come on,
you made the reference.
You did first.
I didn't make it.
Yes, you did.
I did.
I was so proud of you when you said this.
What, Buck Wild?
Yes, you said, isn't this like Buck Wild from Flavor of Love, whenever her accent dropped and changed, and this whole time she was pretending to be somebody else. But I don't know, that moment definitely reminded me a little bit of like, oh, when,
it just like the mannerisms and everything changed. And I think it was really because I think probably this is the first time where we've really seen her upset or even, mad at this point. We haven't seen her, so
I think that's part of it too. It's like we've always just seen sweet, nice Litia.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like whoa, now she's mad.
Yeah,
It didn't even go to sad. It went straight to just mad.
yeah, which I get it because I mean, you know,
Yeah, I
especially in your
understand.
eyes, I mean, or in her eyes, it's like kind of her whole world is crumbling with
But
this whole
yeah, last night
situation.
you said, I can't believe she didn't even hit sadness. It was just,
It did. Well, I was stunned. It didn't seem like, yeah, it kind of just went straight to being mad about the whole thing and not much. I don't know. I mean, she didn't really cry, but it even just didn't show much from what I thought I saw, much sadness at all. I mean, she was just very focused. And I guess ultimately it was because he said all these things and then blindsided her
right.
with this. So I can kind of get it, but I don't know. I would almost think, if there is, well, I mean, if there's true love, right? I mean, you still have to, right? Because I mean, love, you ultimately want the best for the other person, and if that's what they went with, then I mean, you've got to understand that. But
Well, I think I told you maybe she was really mad at first, but then, she was saving the sadness and all the emotional stuff for when the cameras went off too. And that could definitely be it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, maybe she breaks down once she's out of the car.
But I think she was very, very mad and upset and totally blindsided by what happened. And she says to Grant, you're different than what I thought. And Grant says he's caught off guard, and she says, come on now, again.
Yeah, I guess it was just because it was more, I was always kind of expecting, you know, well, why not me? What happened? What did, why did you change your feelings? Or I don't know, kind of
All these questions
things.
are flooding into her head, and she's replaying all these moments that they've had together. And Litia says, Juliana is a wonderful woman and she definitely deserves love. And if she were her, she would have a lot of questions based off of what Grant has told Litia. So Litia says the things he said to her along the way has made this all so devastating. And he said, well, I didn't switch things up. I did have feelings for you. And then she says, well, I'm just disappointed here. And he says it came down to the final day where he had to make a decision and he's truly sorry. She says, I'm confused, I'm sad, I'm mad. He loved me, but he picked somebody else he loved more.
Yeah, which, I mean, at this point, he's already gone down the road of saying I love you to both of them.
Which I think, that's the biggest problem, right? You tell somebody you love them, and then Latia's head over heels for him, and then all of a sudden he just pulls the carpet out from under her and totally blindsides her, and it's just a terrible situation.
I was thinking about like Jones, way, and I feel like
Jones' way makes the most sense. Although we did say that maybe producers don't like this all the time because
right, because at the end of the day, it's the show first and etc. But because at least you got to this point, and just Joan knew at this point that like it's chalk. I'm not even going to entertain or even try to give the illusion that it's Guy and have him build up any more feelings just to slash him at the knees. And
so she let him go as soon as she possibly could, I think. I think they said
yes,
you have to bring him to the finale, but she didn't even go on the dates with him. She said, I don't even feel comfortable going on the dates with him. I'm just going to tell him, we're friends. That's it.
I think too, because probably with that one, it was like maybe that was the first time that it happened and like that, and so that could have been an okay to be able to have like this a new ending of how
Right.
Bachelor
But they
ends.
don't want that to be a repeat
But
ending.
yes, yeah, but I don't think Grant was going to do this anyway. But this is where this whole thing of just feeling out the process of the show until to get the entirety of it. to get letting it go this deep into it to where there was
Hurtful.
no let up at all, even in the last date of, I don't know where I'm at yet. I,
I think in the
it,
last date, it was just like, I've just buried myself so deep with everything. And now she's acting so happy and cheerful. I don't even know how to react to this anymore. I mean, I think he was probably feeling awful in the last date with her, but he couldn't express himself at that point because he dug himself so deep.
yeah, I mean, and he was at least seemed very cognizant of the having to let someone down, and he mentioned, how do you tell someone that you love them that you can't be with them, and you've got to end it and for them. And so it seems he was at least thinking about that, and I think he was very nervous or just very anxious about this moment that
Yeah.
had to happen. But
He looked terrified of the moment.
I do think which I get it, you're in the moment. I'd probably end up saying the same things, or probably, but him constantly reassuring, well, I do love you, or I did love you, and all these things. I don't think she probably wants to hear that at this
No.
at this point. You might as well just stick to the "I've not chosen you." There's no need to try to soften it with that,
Right.
because that's just gonna make it worse. But
So now Litia is live on stage with Jesse in this little interview. And she says, I was very shocked back then. And she says that her and Grant talked a lot about what that day would look like. He told her they would be engaged the night before. And this is her version of him telling her that she would be engaged. It was, she said to him, "Oh my gosh, we're getting engaged tomorrow." And he said, "Yeah, I know." So there was that.
yeah, I mean, she does mention there was a lot even earlier in the episode or throughout the series that there was a lot of talk off camera that he felt, the strongest with her.
Right.
And
He said to her, "I could just shut this whole show down right now because I know it's you," in the end, at one point in time.
yeah. And so I think there was just a lot of hit, or she was saying too, of this. I was trying to slow things down, and he was just hitting the gas and fine with keeping things rolling at the speed,
Right. Right.
which I guess is ultimately what made her flip the switch. Because I guess he's just constantly, if this was, if he's just constantly pushing that, yeah, we're fine, we're in it, it's gonna be us. Of why she does kind of have the flip switch towards the end,
Right.
and but it ended up not. So maybe he just kind of fooled himself a little bit as well.
Yeah. So she says, because of all these things, I was so sure at the end. And then Jesse says, "Were you in love with him?" And she says, "Well, I was in love with the pieces that he showed me, but now I think that he made the right decision."
Yeah, this, where she says, "Oh, I saw the pieces, or the pieces that I wanted to see of him." I don't think he was,
Malicious.
yeah, or manipulative and all. I think it's just he went full gung ho, allowing these things to go, both connections to just go a lot deeper than they probably should have. But, or at least between the two of them, I think it should have been one start going deeper the one and start pulling back on the other to just give him a little warning that it's not gonna work out.
Right. So when Grant comes out, we hear a little bit more about the things he told Litia because she says it to him. And she says, "We've always had a strong connection, but you said on our first group date that I would be your wife." And then she asked him, "Where was the honesty, accountability, and protection that you promised me?" And Grant says, "As a man, I accept responsibility here. I'm definitely not perfect. I did love you. And this was just a difficult situation I was in." And he says he wants to apologize for hurting her and her feelings. And he's truly sorry, but he had to make a decision that was best for him. And when it came down to it, Juliana made the most sense for his life.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with I think what he said was very well said. I mean, he's ultimately, I mean, he did admit to, probably over communicating certain things too early on and whatnot. So, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I think he is taking responsibility
Yeah,
for
because
it
Jesse
now.
says, "Do you regret telling Litia you loved her?" And he says, "No, I wear my emotions on my sleeves, but I did speak too soon. I apologize for that." And then Litia says, "I deserve a love that'll be sure about me in the future."
It would have been interesting if they asked, but I get it because it's pretty personal. But what Latia thought watching the finale, or even seeing like Juliana's side of the date, and where like they start telling each other they love them and so forth. I mean, because she does say, "Well, watching it back now, I see why he picked Juliana." Because obviously during it, they don't get to see the one on ones or, really what are the connection levels with the other people. So it is kind of interesting, for like Latia probably if she did watch it, like watching all of the interactions with Juliana during the series of
That must be a painful watch for the other side to
yeah, I mean, I would
see.
not want to, and
And if I were Juliana, I would not want to watch this back
yeah,
like at all.
yeah,
I,
especially because I wonder if the Latia, especially because Latia was like, well, Juliana's gonna have some questions, I'm sure, during the whole one.
right. When she sees all of this. But
Yeah,
I think ultimately Juliana was understanding about the whole process
yeah,
too. So we rewind back to Juliana in her final moments with Grant here, and she walks up to Grant. She meets with him second after the whole Litia letdown. And they meet together. Grant says he sees a forever love between him and Juliana. And Juliana says she's so in love with him. They talk about how far they've come. She says she wants to protect his heart, celebrate all the days with him, and she loves him and she'd be the luckiest girl in the world to spend her life with him. And Grant says, "We've always had a connection together. She has inspired him. They understand each other." And he says he'll always be there for her as a man, a friend, a partner. And then he proposes to her. And she says yes. And then he says, "Oh, wait, I forgot something, the rose." And then they talk about them being the wolf pack.
yeah. This thing, the whole rose at the end, I don't. It's like this weird.
Are you surprised Jesse didn't pop out and say, "Okay, we have one rose for tonight"?
Yeah, actually, yes, because he's said it for
He didn't pop out this
every other
time.
time.
I thought you'd comment on that, and you didn't.
Yeah,
Live.
I did not think about that, but yeah, he's there every other time, but he does it.
I think that'd be funny as a joke, like for
I
him
guess
to
it's
pop out.
because I mean, yeah, especially the person who's getting rejected would really probably hate that, but I guess it's because they're not coming
Oh,
out.
not the rejection person, but the one who won.
Well, yeah. Well, right. The one would find it probably
Could you
funny,
imagine
and
if
the
he
other
did it
would
with
like hate it.
Latia
Well, that's
after she
why.
says, "Come on now," and then she gets really mad?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
he's like, "Just to remind you, there's one rose that is left."
yeah, but they're not side by side, and they're picking.
Right.
It's they both get this one on one. I guess because it's the more anxious part, right? They don't know if they've been chosen yet or not. But because he does the proposal, he gives her the ring, and then he does the rose, which is like I don't know. I don't know how. I guess it's just obviously for to bring the Bachelor or the game full circle that she gets asked they
Right.
receive the final
Right.
rose. But
Yeah. So this was a very heartwarming moment with them, the way it ended.
yeah, I mean they look very happy.
Now we see them live together too.
Yes, they are. Looks like still together and strong, and
Yeah, very happy couple. It seems their lives fit very well together. They talk about how they're each other's best friend. It was all worth it to find their lifelong partner. And she's just very happy. She comes out and she shows off her ring. And they say Neil Lane knows what he is doing.
yeah, major shout outs to the to the ring place.
Yes.
but, but yeah, they look strong. The other thing we saw was Grant's been releasing some TikToks throughout this, and then I guess Juliana has as well, and people were commenting in their comments about how the ceiling looked the same and
Yeah.
where they were posting because they were probably maybe posting in different spots or something.
They're like, look, it means they might be together because they both have the same ceiling in their TikTok.
I mean, that was
Apartment ceiling.
crazy that people were going to those observations
But
to be
then we
able
looked
to.
back at it, we're like, it does look.
It did.
Mm.
Well, then I thought though too. I wonder if Latia's even made. We haven't looked, but if Latia's made even any posts about this,
Right.
because I would almost think that would give it away too, right? Because I'm sure the one who gets projected probably doesn't really want to. Maybe maybe they want to just help push themselves out as a brand, but really promote a whole lot about the show to watch it and whatnot, since it was probably heartbreaking to try to
Well, I'm
rewatch
sure
this
they want
again.
that fame, though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, at least just
Or
that.
recognition that they were on the show.
Yeah, so maybe there, but if Litia hasn't been posting a whole lot, then maybe that could be also like an indicator of
Right.
who won
Yeah, we don't know.
versus not. But
So Juliana says, it's so surreal and she's so happy that she can now go out in public with Grant because they've been indoors keeping everything quiet for so long. And she also says that she gave Grant a lot of grace with the decision and how he came to the decision and knew that this was a tricky situation that he was put in. So that was good.
Well,
to
yeah.
hear.
So it doesn't seem like there's any hard feelings from her or whatnot. I guess especially seeing how deep Litia and
Yeah.
Grant got.
So Grant says Juliana's outlook on life is amazing and she carries herself so well. And then they talked briefly about the speculations of Grant not being happy after the Women Tell All because he's kind of turned into a couple memes with his sad reactions when he was on that show.
Well, that was something I saw was when Jesse was like, tune in next week for the finales or whatever. How Grant looked very
Devastated.
solemn.
Yeah.
Like not. I guess because I think for him, having to go through that again, and especially the letdown of Litia probably was tough to rewatch. So
Yeah, but it wasn't true. He's very happy now. So.
right. Ultimately he's happy, but I think thinking about that probably was tough to think about again.
Maybe that's why he was a little
But yes, he was
sad.
Jesse's very excited there, and he's very the opposite.
Or maybe, Juliana says, I was reading all these things and yeah, we played into it a little bit because everybody's going to find out the truth soon. So who cares?
Yeah, right.
So we see Juliana's parents in the audience and they talk to her dad, and her dad says he's so happy for them. This is all he's wanted, is for the two of them to be happy. And he's so glad that the two families are finally coming together now. Grant's family and her family in the audience together. And I'm sure they'll hang out together after that. And then the big announcement is Grant is moving to Boston. So they're both moving in together in an apartment in Boston. And this is to be near Juliana's family, which I thought was really nice. And also on the East Coast, close to where Grant's family is as well. So it seems to be a perfect fit.
Well, this was when they mentioned this, I hadn't thought about it originally while, during the finale episode. But when they mentioned that about living in Boston, I did almost think too, or especially that, her parents are in the Northeast area. If that almost could have played a potential too in his decision, because
Sure, location.
families would have both been in the same area, where Latia's in Utah and he's, in New Jersey.
Well, Litia said, I'd be okay with moving. Remember that?
Right.
Clip.
But I think ultimately she did say that was going to be for a couple years to start. So it's somewhere like neutral.
And also none of her family members were over there. And he wants to be a part of a big family where he sees them a lot.
Right.
Right.
But then I think too, as years would have been gone on, especially kids, it would have
just been complicated.
It would have been a push for Litia to try to go back to Utah, probably. So that could have been something down the road as well. So that I think did almost probably have
I
could have
think
had
you're
an
right.
influence. They didn't, obviously it's narrative and what they want to show what he was thinking, but that could have been something too going through his mind
Yeah, definitely.
as well. Because
Long term success with that.
but yeah, they're at least together in the same area, so that'll work
And they
well.
have family nearby.
Yeah,
And Grant seems to like Boston too. So yeah, I think it's going to work out well, and I'm excited for them.
yeah, and then
The big announcement.
they still keep getting more sweet deals in the bag because I guess ABC is giving them or Bachelor Nation is giving them a trip to Italy as well.
Woohoo! Italy.
To the motherland of pizza.
And cannolis.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of nice. They were excited for that.
I guess they did something like that they did something like with like Joan and the other ones as well. But
I can't remember fully what Jones.
I thought they had some vacation
was.
somewhere. They had some.
I think Gary had something planned after his wedding, and I don't know.
Well, Gary, I guess, was the big wedding, right?
I thought they were sending them somewhere after the wedding or something.
Oh, they may have sent them somewhere too.
I don't know.
I guess this is something I just kind of forgot.
But did you see the zoom in to Grant's sister?
Yes, she looked. Yeah,
she didn't look happy. Why?
I don't know. It was like the mom and dad were happy, clapping, and then she was clapping, but she looked.
Her face looked
kind of
like mad,
solemn. Probably just because it's like, man, this guy's still getting.
She's like, my brother gets to go to Italy now. No,
still sweet deals even after when the show ends. I guess especially because it's like a year later, so it's like. But yeah, no, that's a pretty
I'm sure
awesome
she
deal.
was happy for them.
Yes, of course, but maybe it was just a bad shot. Maybe she didn't. It's one of those things where she didn't expect the camera to be pointed
I don't
at
know.
her,
That was bizarre.
but
unless she really isn't happy for them, who knows?
It was just funny to observe that. But
so then Zoe comes out, and we get to see a very small recap with her.
Yeah, very tiny.
Very tiny, because she wasn't on the Women Tell All because she was busy being in the top 3. She has a very short time here, but she says she is strong. She's proud of herself. And a future husband, though, she wants a man that sees her value from the start and a one-on-one date before meeting family members, which the audience laughs about.
Yeah.
So that was really it. But the next announcement, Bachelor in Paradise with Zoe. And then this confusing introduction to some golden Bachelor members that will also be on there.
Well, real quick, when they ended Zoe's
this was ridiculous.
excerpt,
Yes, this was ridiculous.
It was just weird because Jesse just said something at the end of it, like acknowledging it, but then he like just quickly rolled into like the Bachelor in Paradise announcement. And I don't know, just almost felt like he was just really brushing along like Zoe's whole little
I thought you were going to talk about the part where he says, Zoe, I have a question for you. Will you be on the Bachelor of Paradise?
Well, this made no sense since obviously they filmed this already. So this was like a very weird question.
Did they film it? I don't know if they filmed it, but she would have already had to have made this obligation to join the show before she said yes to Jesse on stage, right?
I would hope that they would not actually on live television ask her this question. I would hope that it would be in a private setting.
But Jesse goes, she said yes, guys. She said yes because she's obligated to, because they already know that she's a part of this.
Yeah.
Probably. But anyway, Gary and Leslie come up from the Golden franchise. And then Jesse says, this will all be confusing for now, but it'll make sense later. But there's a blend of Golden and regular Bachelor members in Bachelor in Paradise this summer.
Yeah, so this is the big twist. So they have a number of young Bachelor people and a number of Golden Bachelor people. So,
well, I was like asking so many questions. I'm like, how is this going to work? How are they going to date? Are they going to date in groups? And you're like, I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to intermingle, but
Well, could you imagine a 70-year-old going on dates with a 30-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be... I don't know. I guess that'd be good television to watch, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe they will encourage that.
How is this going to work?
They'll just hang it.
They'll just hang out.
Yeah, they'll have half. I mean, they'll all be together, but I'm sure the romantic relationships will be separated, but I'm
Well,
sure they'll
this
still
could
do the
actually be
events or
sweet.
games or whatever they do on this. But
Yeah, I've never seen this before, so it'll be interesting to see this and now with a little twist. But I would think the golden members could really give some good advice to the younger Bachelor
oh
members,
yeah, absolutely.
which that could create some heartwarming moments too. I wonder if any golden and regulars will get involved in some drama together.
Yeah, maybe. I don't.
That would be really
I
weird
don't think so because I think
because the golden people are pretty mellow now.
they're so much more mature and they're just on a whole
So
nother
much more
level.
mature.
Just seeing the difference between the regular shows.
They'll be singing "We Are the Mansion Men," and the younger ones will be
Yeah, well, they get
saying
Kim
"I'm crazy and evil." Kim,
yeah, that would be
Yeah.
good.
or maybe some younger members will sing with Kim this time,
Yeah,
and he won't be a solo act.
that's true.
But overall, we are excited for that show to start and recapping it. And this was just really neat to see the finale of The Bachelor and Grant's experience. And we wish Grant and Juliana well, and we're excited to see their future as a couple now.
Yeah, congratulations to them and wish them the best. And
Yes. Hopefully, Litia finds someone great,
yeah,
and Zoe too. But we'll see Zoe soon on
Yeah.
Bachelor in Paradise.
yes,
But yeah, this was a lot of fun recapping this season, and we're excited to recap more. So stick around with us.
yes, and then maybe too. Well, I guess they're already casting for Golden Bachelorette or Bachelorette. I was shocked that they didn't have a
Golden
announcement
yeah.
for either one of those,
Yeah.
but I guess maybe they're still working on that. But
So whenever that pops up, we'll be recapping that too.
yeah, but Paradise is next. Get your beach hats on.
Yeah, beach hats. And also we have some other things coming up soon too. But stick around.
Indeed.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of A Fine Podcast.
Yes, we hope you liked it. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like our content. And
Keep up with us and leave us a comment. What did you think about the finale?
yeah, absolutely. And let us know if there's any other shows you want us to check out or review or whatever.
Suggestions available? Do you have them? We'd love them.
Yeah, please give them to us.
Okay, well, take care.
We'll see you later. Ciao.
Bye.